Okay, well, I've just opened up Adobe Audition right here, and before we start, let me just show you the areas if you don't have it. This is where all our work, this is where our waveform will show up in this area right here. And down at the bottom, in this area, this will show the levels of our recording, how loud it is as a function of time. And then up here, this is where we'll drag any files that we want to edit in up here. And then down here in the lower left, it will play the video portion of the file. I've shot a video that we'll use, and it'll show up in just a second. And let me just show you, okay, so that you can tell. This is about a 15-second video that I shot. I used my iPhone without a microphone, so the sound, I know it's going to come out very light, okay, very soft, and I'll show you how to correct that. But without a microphone, it comes out. I could have used a high-tech microphone and things and got the sound really, really good, but I don't want it really, really good. I want some problems with it so that we can show you how to edit that. So what I'll do is I'll just drag this into this area right here, okay? And then what I'll do is double-click on this. This is my video file. And so here's the waveform for my file. Don't worry about these 4 peaks. That's something I did. You probably know why I did that. I clapped my hands 3 or 4 times. That's what these peaks are. And that's so that I can, if I have to, I can sync the sound up with the video later when I put it in my video editor. So don't worry about that. Okay. Now, if I come over here anywhere like this, just play it for a second. The sound in your videos, and there are some marvelous things that you can do inside. So right down here, it plays the video. Now, keep in mind, Adobe Audition is an audio editor. We can't edit this. If I don't like the color, the contrast, the exposure, the gamma, the vibrance, anything, I can't edit anything to do with the video portion of this recording. This just shows so that you can see that I've got some audio going with this video. It's all synced up and everything. So, you know, it's there, but if you like looking at yourself, you can you can see yourself. Okay. So let's look at some issues that I have with this audio file right here. And I'll tell you when you start out that if you want to apply any effects, and we're going to be talking about compression and compression, and the other thing is normalization today. And if you want to apply any effects, you can, for example, highlight the entire clip, and whatever effect you apply, like if you compress this, normalize it, whatever, it will apply that to the entire audio file. Now, it could be that maybe this area right here you see as a problem, and you just want to compress this part of the audio, okay? Then just highlight that. And if you run it through your compressor, it will only compress this area. So you can select any part of your file that you'd like to. Now, the first thing that I notice when I play this again is what we call compression, and how you can see that it's coming up, the audio is coming up in this range like -18 to 20 decibels down here. That's way, 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 way too soft. If you put this on YouTube, nobody's going to hear it. Okay, so I like to be in this range. Actually, some people would go all the way to close to 0, -3 decibels, something like that. For today, I'm going to try to get to around -9 decibels, and I'll show you why. Some people would go much farther than that. I'll show you why. I'm going to try to get to -9 decibels, and again, you can see what we call normalization. I'm not nearly where I want to be with the volume. Okay, so the volume's the last thing that we'll do. Now, over here, if you can see these numbers, -3, -6, -9, -15 decibels, this is how loud our signal is. And again, I want to get up to where I'm in this range, maybe -6, -9 decibels, someplace right around in here. So what I'm going to do is, if I move my cursor any place on this scale, and then on my mouse pad, I move it up or down, I'm not changing the volume. All I'm doing is changing the scale and making it bigger. So right now, just listen to this. Normalization to greatly enhance. See, I didn't make it any louder. I just changed the scale so that you can see, we can better see what's going on in my waveform. Okay? Now, very first thing, I have some areas right in here where I have good, the level is okay. It's way too soft. It's not loud enough. But this is my normal speaking voice kind of right in there. But then I have some areas where it's very loud. And over here, it's very loud. And if I just use this file the way it is, what I'd end up with is a video where some places the sound is really loud and some places it's really soft. And that's confusing. It's hard on the listeners. We don't want to do that. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and use a thing right here under Effects where it says Amplitude and Compression. And I'm going to come down, and I know we're talking about compression here right now, but there's a thing called a hard limiter. And a hard limiter is really a compressor. It's a compressor where the compression ratio is set to like infinity, which all that means is it just compresses it completely. What it really does is it cuts off these high peaks wherever you'd like to cut them off. Now, you don't want to cut them off way down here because that destroys your voice. But what I can do is look at this and say, look, here's where a lot of my voice is, right in this range right here at about negative 24 decibels. Okay, so let's use that 24 decibel mark right there. And I might even, instead of 24, I might come up here to like 22 decibels. And if I move right across, let me use this pop-up right here. If I'm at negative 22 decibels, what's going to happen when I apply this limiter is anything that's above 22 decibels, louder than 22 decibels, it's not going to compress it, it's just going to cut it right off. It's just like you had a razor blade and you cut all these peaks off. Okay? So what I'll do, let me reset this to the default setting. And again, if I want to come down to 22 decibels, right about here, I can use a slider bar and move this over to where it's at about 22 decibels. That's close enough, but if you want to get right at 22, you can just click on this and put in negative 22 for the decibels right there. Okay? We're not going to worry about the boost and the release time and all that. Just, I'm going to cut it off. Now watch what happens. Watch what happens to these big peaks when I apply that limiter. Okay, see what happened? It cut all those off at 22 decibels right across here. So it's really a compressor, but it's a compressor that super compresses. It compresses so much it just cuts it right off. So right away, this is a little better than it was because now I've gotten rid of those very, very high peaks. Okay, they call those transient peaks. They're things that are just out of whack with the rest of the audio. So anyway, this is what I've got. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I have some regions. Let me, again, I'm not changing the volume. I'm just resetting that a little bit. Okay, so we can see it. And in this region right here, I'm not talking very loud right there. Okay? However, over here, I am talking a lot louder. And what I would like to do is take areas where I have these big peaks and compress them, like put them in a vise and squeeze the top and the bottom of my waveform, squeeze it down so that the shallow peaks are lined up more closely to the high peaks. In other words, I'm going to squeeze these high peaks down so that they're more in line with some of the softer peaks. Okay? That's what a compressor does. So now what I'll do is I'm going to look at this. Again, I'll come back up here to amplitude and compression, and I'll come down to where it says single band compressor. There's some different compressors. This will work fine, this single band compressor for us. Again, let me reset this. Okay, back to the factory settings there. And what I want to do is take some of these peaks. Notice that down here in my shallow voice, my low voice, my soft voice, that stays pretty much underneath, oh, say 25, maybe it's 25, 26 decibels over here. Okay, but the high peaks go up quite a bit above that. So what I'll do is come up here to where it says threshold, and I'm going to move this over to whatever, you know, about 26. Again, I could click on this and get it exactly 26. It doesn't matter. But so what this is going to do is at about this mark right here, going right across here, any of these peaks that are above 26 decibels, it will compress those down and bring them down closer to these lower levels. Okay? Now, we're not going to worry about the attack and release times, especially with music. You might use those, but let's not get confused with that. Okay? They'll work the way they are right now. But the thing we need to do is this ratio. What the ratio does is it tells the compressor how much to compress it. Should it squeeze it down a lot or just a little, whatever. And so if you leave it set at 1:1, there's no compression. That's zero compression. What you need to do is move this over, and I'm going to move this over to something like, let's say, 10:1, something like that. What that means is any place this is above the threshold of our 26 decibels, any of these peaks that are above 26 decibels, right there, across there, it's just going to take those peaks and squeeze them down by a factor of 10:1. So if they were like, you know, 10 decibels above that threshold, it would squeeze them down so they're just 1 decibel above the threshold. This is a very high compression thing that I've got going on here. Too much compression can ruin your audio, but again, I'm not compressing the entire wave. I'm just compressing the parts that are above 26 decibels. So let's see what happens. So what I'll do is let me highlight my entire wave. Again, anything louder than -26 decibels will get compressed by a factor of 10:1. So let's watch and see what happens when I apply this. Okay, now look, now you can see that my low voice areas are much closer in volume to my high voice areas. I've brought them down so that they're very close. They're not exact, but they're very close. And if I play this now, it's going to be very soft, but still listen. In your videos, and there are some marvelous things that you can do inside of Adobe Audition. And you can see in the low areas and the high areas, there's still the decibel ranges closer together. Okay, so I've just compressed this. Now you can't use the numbers that I used. You'll have to play around with your own numbers. Your voice is different than mine. Maybe you're, you know, a male with a big husky voice or a female with a higher voice. Whatever, you have to play with the numbers, but that's how you compress this. Now the problem that I have right now, this is so soft right here. I want it all the way over here in this range over here. This is way too soft. On YouTube, nobody would hear this. So what I can do, there are a couple things that you can do. Okay, one is go to favorites, and you can say normalize this to -0.1 decibels. Now I don't use that. That's too much normalization for me. But if I click on that, see what it did? Let me move my scale, get my scale back down to 0 decibels. And what that does is it normalizes or increases the volume so that it goes almost all the way up to 0 on the highest peaks. Now I don't like to use that, and I'll show you why in just a minute. That's too much normalization. I've increased the volume too much. I'll undo that. Okay, we'll go back here. Another thing you can do is use the -3 decibel normalization. And you can see here, now the highest peaks go up to -3 decibels, and you've got that right there. This is much better. Okay, I like this much better. If I were you, this is probably what I'd go with. But I'm going to undo that and just show you one other thing. You can come down here to this, it says adjust the volume. You can use this and you can slide this and make the volume as big or as small as you'd like. Let me come back here and get a little more. See, that's about where it was before. I know, and I'll show you why in just a second, I know that's going to come out a little hot in the end, and I'm going to move this down so it looks a little more like that. Okay, I like that. And now if I play this, you'll see it's quite a bit louder. And we'll look at those today, and we'll try to give you some ideas for how you can use what we call compression and how we can use what we call normalization. So this got the volume to be just about where I want it to be, and this looks good. Now again, you'll have to play with this. Maybe you can use this normalized to -3 decibels. Maybe that'll work out great for you. I'll show you why I don't use that, but that would be a good starting point for you. Just give it a try. Okay. Now, a couple other things that I might do. The way that I talk, and everybody does this, when you pronounce an S or a T, that S and T is what they call sibilance. And it's just the way my teeth are, my mouth is, my tongue is, the way my face is. And that can get kind of annoying, you know. So I don't know if I can find a place where I do that. How you can use what we call compression. Okay, see where I said compression, the two S's that kind of peeked out there? One thing you can do, let me highlight this whole thing, is come up here to favorites. See where it says de-esser? A de-esser tries to take the S's and the T's and really soften them up so that they're not so hot, so they don't come across quite so much. So if I use this de-esser, what that does, you can see the volumes came down just a little bit, and it tried to, a de-esser is sort of a combination of a compressor and an equalizer, and it looks for frequencies where the S's and T's are popping out, and it tries to soften those up just a little bit. So, you know, now when you play this, how you can use what we call compression and how we can use what we call, okay, every place there's an S, it's softened it up a little bit. It can only do so much, but yeah. There's also a denoise thing. A lot of times I'll hit that. It does a little bit. Probably makes it a little better. Inside of Adobe Audition that can really make a huge difference. So I've got some pretty good sound going right there. Okay, so I would say I'm done with this. Now what you can do, suppose you've got to, somebody comes to the door, you've got an Amazon package that shows up, your phone rings, whatever. You can do a save. Just click on save and it will save this for you on your desktop, and then you can come back and open it up and continue. Maybe you've got to come back tomorrow, next week, or whatever and play with it. But you can save. That'll save your whole file here. But when you get it the way that you want it, you can come down to export, file, click on that, click OK. And now it just takes a second, and what it does really, if I can find it, here it is, right up here. Now it's saved that file. It saved it as an MP3 file. I think you can save it as a WAV file if you want, but yeah, it saved that file. So this is my original video, and this is the file that I just created. Okay, now let me close this down. I won't close it, I'll minimize it right here and just show you what I actually do with this. Okay, well, right here I just open up Screenflow, and I use Screenflow to edit my videos. Okay, it's what I always use. I've used Adobe Premiere Pro, I've used other things, but I like Screenflow. Okay, so I always use this to do video editing work in. So I've got this opened up, and what I'll do is come over here. Now this right here, this says raw video. This is what I shot on my iPhone. Okay, that's what I showed you in Adobe Audition. That was what we worked with in there. So this is what I shot on my iPhone. And this file right here, raw video _.01 MP3. This is what I exported from Adobe Audition after I tweaked up the sound. We did some compression and limiting and things. So I'll bring this in right here. Let's move this back over. And right now, let's just come in and let's just play something inside of here. Now, one thing I'm going to do is in Screenflow, I'm going to take this file that I got off my iPhone, and I'm going to come up to Edit and do Detach Audio. And all that does is it separates the video portion of the file and the audio portion. So I've got it separate. And I want to do this so that you can actually see the waveform that I've got here. So when I play this, let's just play this and listen for just a second. Tweak up the sound in your videos, and there are some marvelous things that you can do. Okay, so as you can see, the volume, and you saw this in Adobe Audition, the volume is very low. It's very low, and I could have got my iPhone in closer. I could have used a microphone, but like I said, I think the camera was 3 or 4 feet away, and I didn't talk very loud, I guess. But yeah. Side of Adobe Audition that can really. Okay, so the sound isn't very great. Now, I can come in here. Well, let me just go back and show you this right here, and we'll have a blank screen because this is just the audio file after I tweaked it up in Adobe Audition. Now listen to the difference in this sound. Audition. To really tweak up the sound in your videos, and there are some marvelous things that you can do inside of Adobe. So a couple things. One, this is much louder because we did that inside of Audition. We made this much louder, and so it's a good sound. And you can also see in here, because we compressed it, you can see that there aren't any big peaks that go, way up towards the top. I've compressed this, but there's still a good dynamic range in my voice there. Now, I can come over here, go back to the video, and I can click on the WAV file from my original video, and I can come up to Sound, and I can use the slider bar to increase the sound and make this louder. In your videos, and there's some marvelous. See, it's a little louder, but it's still not nearly loud enough. So that's as far as the slider bar will go. But I can come in and type this in. Let's try. We'll try 600. That'll make it 6 times as loud. So yeah, we'll do that. And you can see that this got a lot louder now. Okay, and one thing you can notice in here is that there are peaks. This peak right here is very, very loud, and I have some very soft areas, and you can see the difference between when I compressed it. We got rid of those big, tall peaks in there. So now when I play this, was to show you how to use Adobe Audition to really tweak up. Okay, now a couple things to notice. Because of my teeth, my mouth, my tongue, my head, I have some S's and T's that get a little too much air coming out, when I say them. And you can hear that in here. You don't hear those in here because, do you remember, I used that de-esser inside of Adobe Audition, and I got rid of a lot of those. And as you listen to some marvelous things that you can do inside of Adobe Audition. Okay, so when I have S's in here, they got de-essed or notched down a little bit. So that's one good thing, and I compress this so I don't have these high peaks and low valleys. It's more evened out. So what I would do then, since this audio that I got from Audition is better than this raw audio, is I could move this out of here and then take this file that I made in Audition and now put that in there. And now if I play this, I can come in and just go someplace and play it inside of Adobe Audition. That can really make a huge difference. And we'll look at those today, and we'll try to give you some ideas for. Okay, so all I did, and I could come over here, and if this was a big video file, for a 10-minute video or something, I could take the original audio, hit delete, and just delete it, and then I end up with my good Adobe Audition to really tweak up the. So that's how I would use the file that I got out of Adobe Audition. I'd put it into Screenflow, and then in Screenflow or whatever you use to edit your videos, I would just take this and come up and go down to export. Okay, and a pane comes up and asks you what you want to call it and all this stuff. And I'd export that, and then that would be good to upload to YouTube. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. You can, try out Adobe Audition and, see what you think of it. It's got a lot more features than just the 2 or 3 that I showed you. You can do all kinds of, especially with music. The 2 things in music, the biggest things are compression and equalization, and there are a number of different equalizers in there that you can use. So especially in music, you can do wonderful things. Okay, well, I had fun with this. I hope you learned something, and as always, my very best wishes for just tremendous success with all that you do on YouTube. I care. I really do care, and I hope that you all are very successful and have a lot of fun with your YouTube videos. Okay, well, this again is Mike McMillan. You take care, and subscribe to my channel, give me a like, or if you have any questions, just post them down below, and I always answer all my questions, and 95% of the time I get back within 24 hours. A lot of times it's within an hour or 2, depends on what I'm doing. Okay, well, you guys take care, be good, you're all great.